Oh, boy howdy, the second dinner have a horrible habit of dropping game-breaking news when I'm soundly asleep in the middle of the night. Screw me for being in the UK, I suppose, but some of the most important news in recent history of Marvel Snap came to light in the middle of last night to do with series drops finally making their way into the game. We have a small subsection of cards making their way down from Series 5 into Series 4, and more importantly, some cards making their way from Series 4 into Series 3. I'm excited to take a look at the list of cards with you very, very shortly and talk about whether this is enough to mitigate some of the problems we've been having in Marvel Snap recently. This latest patch has been very interesting, but the announcement has now come on through. The first downgrades will be happening approximately 2 months after their release. The next patch is planned for January 31st, 2023, and that is when we can expect the series drop to be happening, and hopefully other stuff already announced, such as the battle mode teased in the developer update, will be coming with it in that patch at the end of the month. The developers have also acknowledged the problem with current card acquisitions in Series 5. The plan is to introduce something called First Edition badges that we'll look at in just a moment for players who have acquired a new card as a Series 5 card before it gets downgraded to a lower series, as well as improvements to the current collector's token and token shop models. We'll be going through the full details of what we currently know in this video. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It would be lovely to see you for more things Marvel Snap here in the future. Appreciate all the support, and if you wouldn't mind dropping us a like while you're down there, maybe leaving a comment to keep the algorithm happy. Let me know what you think about these changes and whether you think it's enough to keep things ticking over in Marvel Snap. With all that said and done, let's start taking a look at this comprehensive list of cards that are moving down from series to series. So first of all, we'll look at the more exciting one for many players, the cards that are making their way from Series 4 down to Series number 3. We've got She-Hulk, Absorbing Man, Titania, and Luke Cage making their way down from 4 to 3. And honestly, I think all of these are really solid choices for cards to move down to Series 3. All of these see a variety of play, and some of them have been arguably a bit prohibitive for players who haven't been able to get access to them, and some of them have been very interesting tech cards that allow very unique and powerful archetypes that many players want to play but couldn't rationalize spending 3,000 tokens on the card required to do so. As a result, we get to look at She-Hulk more often. This is a card that sees all kinds of play at the moment in things like Bayro, multiple Moon Girl decks looking to copy 2 copies of it out. It is a really powerful effect, being able to play 10 power for next to no cost, and obviously plays very, very well with Wave. I think this is definitely falling into the latter camp in that case of cards that were prohibitively expensive and new players kind of wanted the ability to open earlier, so it makes sense to move this one down as it was commonly seen to be one of the more powerful cards in Series 4. Very happy to see it finding its way into Series 3 as some cards move down to replace it in the higher set. The same could be said for Absorbing Man. This is actually a card we picked up very recently, and I think this was arguably the most important card to move down into Series 3 in Zabu season, in the Savage Lands, because people want 4-cost cards right now. 4-cost cards are very important for the natural progression of the game in order for you to be able to do exactly what you're supposed to do with the current Season Pass and create many play patterns that otherwise aren't available to you as a player. Opening this one up as a kind of counterpart to Mystique in the same series seems very clever to me, and it's just a card that's in very high demand right now, seeing a lot of play in a lot of decks. Very powerful, as I say, with Zabu and of course Spider-Man, a few other things as well. So looking forward to seeing more players getting their hands on this one. This one gets a huge upvote from me. I think it's arguably the most important card to shift down into Series 3. Titania, on the other hand, falls into the secondary camp. I think this card is very strong. It's a very unique effect and creates very cool play patterns. There's a very interesting sub-game in balancing locations for bouncing Titania back and forth, and sometimes she just provides you with 5 stats on a lane that you can no longer lose because your opponent has already filled it, and that's an incredible rate for just 1 cost of energy. I think she's a card that's largely underexplored because people didn't know how good she was or where to use her or where she just might be best overall, and for that reason I like seeing this one move down into Series 3 as well. This is going to get the card into more players' hands, which means we can explore more of those archetypes that can leverage a card like this, and maybe see it popping up more in some of the Sarah shells as a final turn play, or more things like Valkyrie control that we've seen kind of pioneers of in the past. Really excited about this one because I don't have the card myself, and I've been looking forward to exploring it in a variety of archetypes. So big thumbs up on Titania moving down as well. Last but not least, Luke Cage makes its way into Series 3. This one also feels like it was quite important, especially following the recent Hazmat buff. I think they want to enable that kind of pseudo combo deck to be better, kind of like they mentioned in the patch notes. They want Hazmat to be a better card overall, and making more players be able to get their hands on Luke Cage seems like a pretty surefire way to do that. Obviously, this one still plays pretty well with cards like Typhoid Mary 2, a card that is seeing an uptick in play thanks to Zabu. So I think, again, useful tool to have access to. Definitely one that never really felt like a Series 4 card. Definitely felt like a niche effect that belongs in Series 3. And so I'm very, very happy to see this card moving down as well. We take a look at arguably the more expensive decreases, 5 cards making their way down from Series 5 into Series 4. I'll start with the one that I think makes the most sense first of all, and honestly I'm the happiest to see, Black Panther moving itself down into Series 4. I very much expect this one to move into Series 3 next month. I kind of talked about this briefly in some videos before, but I think the whole goal should be to make Season Pass cards available in the Season Pass, add them to Series 5, and then just move them down each and every month immediately. I don't think they should ever stay in Series 5. So I want to see Panther moving down to 4, and then Panther moving down to 3, when Surfer moves down to 4, and so on and so forth, to kind of make those cards significantly more accessible as more and more Season Pass cards enter the game. Really happy to see this. Was a bit worried it was going to be stuck in Series 5, and quite frankly, Black Panther is not the kind of card anyone really wants to be paying 6,000 collector's tokens to access, with no chance of having it drop basically ever otherwise. So really, really excited to see this one moving down. As much as it seems kind of non-impactful overall, was very scared this one would be stuck inaccessible for a lot of newer players. The one I'm most excited about, and it's still pinned in my shop, I guess, but thankfully, hopefully, it should be a bit cheaper for me by the time I actually buy it now. Shuri, same thing to be said here, really, about Absorbing Man. Same kind of thought process, really. A card that no one really wanted to have to spend 6,000 tokens on because it was proving to be a bit game warping against them. But it's another 4-cost card that players want to access and want to be able to play with when they've bought the Season Pass for Zabu. So having it be prohibitively expensive behind Series 5, pretty problematic in my opinion. So very, very happy to see this one moving down as well. Not only because I haven't bought it yet myself, but I think the card is incredible. It's very, very strong and opens up a lot of very good decks for players. Happy to see it moving down and becoming slightly more accessible over time. Similar story for Super Skrull. This one I actually didn't mind staying in Series 5, to be honest, because I think that's what Series 5 should be. Big, flashy effects that are very unique and very powerful, but not necessarily like game warping around them, and Super Skrull felt that way. It was very much a tech card that let you have some leverage in spots. Didn't feel like it was particularly overwhelmingly strong, or like a build around, for example, but the effect was cool enough to warrant itself being a Series 5 card, unlike something like Shuri, who fundamentally their effect is quite boring. That being said, the same kind of rules apply here. It's another 4-cost card people wanted to try in their Zabu decks, especially in those Zabu mirror matches that they kind of just couldn't get their hands on, so makes a lot of sense to move this one down during this season. Again, kind of big fan for that reason. Less of a fan of this one than the other two. Really kind of care less, I suppose, but makes a lot of sense to move these 4-cost cards down where possible. Valkyrie moving down actually makes me much, much happier. However, I think this is definitely a card that is mostly unexplored for a lot of players, and as a result, a lot of people still don't play around it on turn 6, and you can win an awful lot of cubes with this one if your opponent is caught unprepared. Again, unique effect. I think this is very, very solid in styles of decks like Zoo, things like Bounce Thanos that we've played before. It even has its own dedicated Valkyrie control deck that we've experienced in the past on stream a few times as well, and I'm sure there are many, many other places this deck can see play. This card can see play that doesn't currently, because it was quite an expensive one to pick up. I know this is a fan favourite for a lot of folks. Many people were saving for this even when they were still in Series 3, so very, very happy to see this one moving down as well, as it just gets the card into the hands of more players. Last but not least, we have Bast. I think this was a commonly requested one to move down from series to series. A number of people were definitely very vocal about Negative Surfer being such a strong archetype, and the optimal versions of that deck definitely include Bast as a card, and many people simply just didn't have access to it. As a result, this one seems like a pretty good move for specifically that archetype, and maybe allowing people to explore more ways to utilize the card, as that seems to be the only deck where it's really found a home. This one will definitely kind of tell the tale in time, I think. I'm not sure how impactful this one is going to be, but I think a lot of people that were happy to play negative decks are going to be quite happy to see this one is now half the price it was before. Few other things that are worth noting with this announcement. So keeping in mind, when cards drop series, they become 10 times more common in collector's reserves and much, much cheaper in the token shop. Apparently, we're looking forward to seeing a series drop every single month. Series drops currently will require a patch for them to happen, so the exact date and time is going to vary quite significantly. The patch with this series drop and the ability to battle your friends is currently planned to land on January 31st, but if they run into any last minute issues, they may choose to delay this patch to make sure things are working correctly. When they're choosing which cards to drop, they're often going to start with the ones that have been in the series the longest. So that's your key to keep in mind for cards that may be dropping in series in the future. They're going to be looking for cards that have been there for the longest amount of time. This is except for 2 specific big bads. All cards will eventually become easy to obtain through series drops. However, there are currently 2 cards that Second Dinner do not plan to drop down a series. They are your favourite 2 6-cost supervillains, Thanos and Galactus. They're just too dang epic, and they firmly believe they belong to be Series 5 cards and should remain as such. We also have another update in this announcement, including a change, I guess, to what happens if you buy the cards before they go down a series. Introducing First Edition. We're excited to announce a new feature that we are working on, they say. First Edition badges. If you acquire a Series 5 card before it moves down to a series, that card will show a First Edition badge when you inspect it. It's a way to show that you got the card when it was brand new. This feature is apparently going to take a little bit of time to build, but our goals are to retroactively apply First Edition badges to cards earned before that feature comes online, and to show the badge on all variants and infinity splits of the cards. So if you pick up a card when it is in Series 5 before it gets downgraded, you will have a different, I guess, shinier, more collectible version than everybody else, and that First Edition badge is going to be staying on any variants or splits you may get in the future after you've bought that card. Personally, I think this is a really big deal. I think this is very clutch for people that were worried about collectability in Marvel Snap, making sure that if they were investing 6,000 tokens into a card, they weren't feeling like they got ripped off when they've, see the card get downgraded and become available for a cheaper price, even though they've had it for a while to play with. This gives us a surefire way of making sure people feel like they have a way of proving they were an early adopter of the card or something to that effect. It'll be very interesting to see whether this changes people's opinions on buying certain cards like the Sentry or other things like this. Sauron, for example, freshly released, because maybe they want to be able to see these more curveball choices that many people aren't spending tokens on right now. Maybe they want one that will be rarer in the future with that useful First Edition badge. I look forward to seeing how this one goes down in the community, but personally, I think this is a really big update, and I'm quite happy to see this added to the game. We also got a little bit of information in this drop about the token shop and how they realised there is perhaps an issue here, and they intend on having improvements going forward. The statement is as follows: the token shop has been live for a little while, and we've had some time to experience what we like and we don't like. We love how it allows players to make progress towards the cards they want most. We don't love that the hottest, newest cards don't feel accessible to players who haven't completed Series 3. Once players complete Series 3, they start earning 500% more tokens on the collection track, but before then, Series 4 and 5 just feel completely out of reach. We're starting to experiment with changes we could make to let players who are still progressing through Series 3 feel quicker progress towards the new hotness. It's going to take us a little bit of time to make these changes, but our goal is to make sure that experiencing Series 4 and 5 feels better for people who haven't completed Series 3. With so many new cards dropping into Series 4 and 5 and more higher every month, things are definitely going to get spicy. I look forward to seeing what people can build. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this announcement of an announcement, if you like. This one definitely feels like they know there is an issue, they know there is public discontent, and they felt the need to say something, but they don't really know how they're going to fix it just yet, which means it's kind of hard to comment on, I think, overall. Yeah, I think that's basically most of how I feel about that. It feels like this is very much a, oh god, people are getting a bit annoyed, we have to say something. And I guess that's worth something. At least we know that they are aware of the problem. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of these changes in Series 3 and Series 4. I'm excited to see whether there's any cards you're now more excited to buy than before, or whether there's any cards you're more interested in picking up to make sure that they have their first edition badge on them when that ability becomes available. Let me know in the comment section down below. Come and reach out in the community Discord if you want and join thousands of other players talking Marvel Snap 24 hours a day. However, until next time, I have been Howling Minds. You've been amazing. And this has been Marvel Snap Zone. Take care. Have a good one.